Disney Star Wars. It's been with us for quite a while. Disney has officially owned Lucasfilm since 2012, but Star Tours has operated technically since 1987, but in Walt Disney World, the ride that's operated the longest since 1989. Now, I think that we can all agree that there is a very tangible difference between Disney Star Wars and George Lucas's Star Wars, specifically in terms of the films, right? And even when you look at stuff like the Clone Wars animated show to what they're doing now with Bad Batch, and I know that a lot of that is owned by Filoni in terms of creative control and whatnot, and it does feel similar, but you can't help but notice some differences. But today, I want to focus in on how the Disney park, specifically Hollywood Studios Galaxy's Edge, has changed since the introduction of Galaxy's Edge in 2019, and what the differences are between how Disney used to treat Star Wars in the parks versus how they treat it now. And a lot of this, I'd be lying to you. If if the Acolyte wasn't coming out next week, I don't know that I'd be making this video. And I have thoughts on the Acolyte as a series and as a general piece of media. Is it warranted? Do we need it? All of those things remain to be seen, technically, because only a few people have seen it. The reviews are really good, which truthfully just makes me a bit skeptical, but I'm going to give it a fair shake, as I do everything. I am a firm believer that you probably should watch something before you just outright bash it, but Disney's track record with Star Wars right now is at an all-time low for me personally. Now, I want to go into the Galaxy's Edge stuff because I was just in Hollywood Studios about a month ago, taking a friend of mine who had never been for the first time. You can watch that video here. And I noticed something. I noticed something very poignant, in my opinion. The Star Tours attraction felt like Star Wars to me. When you walk in, you're greeted immediately by the John Williams score. You're greeted by 3PO and R2. And while the ships that you ride aren't necessarily canon to the movies or the shows or the books even, it still feels like Star Wars because that ride is all about ships entering and leaving different sections of the galaxy or going to different galaxies altogether. And you feel it because you're hearing things like Naboo, you're hearing things like Tatooine, you're hearing things like Coruscant, or all of these areas that you're familiar with, versus when you enter Galaxy's Edge, you're shoehorned into this very specific moment in time of the sequel trilogy, which is a mixed bag at best amongst fans. Personally, don't really care for the sequel trilogy. I appreciate some of the things that they tried to do. I appreciate trying to expand the lore and take some risk and do some different stuff with The Last Jedi. None of it really landed for me, unfortunately, but I can appreciate the thought behind it, you know, and the effort versus just playing it safe, which is what I feel like Episode 7 did. And then Episode 9, when JJ returned, just felt like they were throwing something together. They didn't have a roadmap. And ultimately, the end of the series fell flat for me. So, already, this area of the park, for me, I'm going to keep iterating that because I never want to tarnish someone's joy. You know, I think that people should be free to enjoy the things that they enjoy. And here's the deal. Galaxy's Edge is enjoyable. And let me expand on that for a second. The first time that I went to Galaxy's Edge, I was on a baby moon with my wife, and it was way before I started this channel. It was way before any of this was even a thought. I wasn't even freelancing doing anything that I'm doing right now, so my creative output was kind of at an all-time low, and I was really just a consumer in terms of the media and everything that goes along with it. I wasn't engaging in discourse very much outside of talking with my friends about it, which is kind of what this channel was born out of in reality. But the first time that I went to Galaxy's Edge, I thought it was really cool. There is certainly something special to being able to see full-size replicas of ships that I grew up playing with in my room that are scaled to how they feel in the movies. That is special. There is some real gravitas to that. And even today, and I've been there, gosh, probably 5 times now, maybe. Even today, it feels a little unbelievable when you're looking at those things in person. The issue with Galaxy's Edge is, and I appreciate what they tried to do, the issue is it's this very specific moment in time that breaks its own rules. So, it's this area of time between episode 8 and 9, and you're isolated to a single planet called Batuu. Versus what I think they probably should have done, which is just break that area up into maybe various settings and landscapes from the trilogies as a whole. Break it up with, a prequel section and a original trilogy section and the sequel section. Let Star Wars lovers get to expand their knowledge of what they think they know, of what they think they enjoy by going to all 3 areas of this park, but also let them really hone in on the area that they love the most. As a kid that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, the prequels are my jam. That's what got me into Star Wars. My dad showed me the original trilogy before I saw any of the prequel movies, but as a kid that was growing up when those movies were coming out, that's where it really hit for me. You know what I mean? And to that same end, there are lovers of the original trilogy that are much older than me, and that's their jam. They got to see it from the beginning. And they want an area of the park where they can go see their heroes, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia and Lando Calrissian and their favorite villains, like Darth Vader, the Emperor, General Tarkin, all like people that you would want to see. And you know what? There are kids today that have grown up with the sequel trilogy that love it, I'm sure. And they should be able to go see Rey, Chewie, Poe Dameron, who actually isn't even a character that walks around in the parks. Like all these people, right? Like all this stuff, you have this rich wealth, and they've pigeonholed it. And I think that they could adapt that. I think that they could swap that around. But when you juxtapose that, it's so funny to me because like they have this whole expansive area, right, where this is what they're focused in on. They're focused in on this specific moment, and then you go to Star Tours, which is an old ride at this point, and you get the new stuff, but you can also get some old stuff. And it's really neat. Like it's a cool thing to experience. And when you go there, you hear the iconic Williams score. You're greeted by droids that are familiar. And when they even gave me some new stuff with the Ahsoka show, going through with the Purgle was part of my Star Tours adventure when I went a month ago, it impacted me in a way that I didn't anticipate. And I appreciated Ahsoka for the most part. It didn't fully stick the landing for me, but I thought it was one of the better pieces of Star Wars media that we've gotten in recent years. So it was cool to see that, and it was cool to see it integrate with some of the older stuff as well. I think Disney is missing the mark because they're so focused on digging their heels in to everything that they're doing now, and they're not respecting the old stuff enough. And that's not even that statement, as I'm saying it out loud, and I'm not going to edit this video, isn't entirely true, I guess, because they just released Phantom Menace and they did a whole bunch of marketing for that, and it did pretty well. I went to go see it. It was a lot of fun. That was the only prequel movie I didn't get to see in theaters because I was a little too young when the first one came out. So it was neat to revisit that and be able to watch it on the big screen. Then, when it comes to some of the Clone Wars stuff and all of that, like, it's also a mixed bag. Star Wars as a whole, you pick and choose the things that you love about it, but the connective tissue and through line is the Force, are the characters, and what makes them, human or feel human, even if they're aliens or whatever, and being able to connect with them, and that's, I think, ultimately where some of the new stuff falls flat. They're not giving you that piece to really connect with. And even with the prequels, clunky dialogue. Certainly, I recognize that the the prequels have their issues. By no means am I excusing that. It's just something that you can look over because Lucas at least gave you the groundwork to understand this world that we're in and the characters' motivations behind why they're doing what they're doing. These are pieces that Disney Star Wars isn't hitting the mark on today. Now, that said, the parks are still enjoyable. I'm going back next week, and I will be visiting Galaxy's Edge for sure. I will probably skip Smuggler's Run, if I'm being honest. But as long as it's operating, and, you know, it's a coin toss. It is literally 50-50 in my experience. I will be getting on Rise of the Resistance for sure. Because, you know what, guys? It's a cool freaking ride. And I think you should be able to enjoy things, you know, even if it's not necessarily like dude, I could not care less about Rey and Kylo Ren. I like really and truly could not care less. But guess what? They got me with the ride, man. They got me. I'm in. You know what I mean? So I don't know. This video is honestly just kind of a bit of rambling about these things as, you know, the Acolyte is fast approaching. And I know that there's going to be a bunch of discourse online between Star Wars fans, people that, you know, are liking the Acolyte or not liking the Acolyte or whatever. At the end of the day, I think it's a good measure of thumb just to generally be respectful. You can absolutely hate something and still talk about it in a respectful way. Like, I have watched the Acolyte trailers and everything. It doesn't look great to me. It looks really, it just doesn't feel like Star Wars, truthfully. But hey, man, I'm welcome to them changing my mind. I'm 100% open to being proven wrong. I'm not so set in my opinions on Disney Star Wars that they can't change it. But right now, for me personally, Star Wars feels pretty dead. And that's a sad thing to say. Like, I love Star Wars so much. I just got this huge Star Wars tattoo on my leg. It's Luke and Darth Vader, and maybe I'll overlay some B-roll. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But it's cool, and I love it. And you know, it's important to me. It's something that I've grown up with, and as an adult still appreciate and revisit often. And I just want to see it succeed. You know, I want to see them do some cool stuff with it. But what do you guys think? I mean, are you excited for the Acolyte? Have you been to Galaxy's Edge? What do you think about Galaxy's Edge? I'm genuinely curious there because I think that Star Tours, if they like expanded Star Tours as a land, you know, and made it this like port from all these eras of Star Wars where, you know, ships are landing and there's different aliens from all the different eras, and you get like the full breadth of the Skywalkers, from all the way from, you know, Anakin and Padme to, you know, Luke and Leia, or Luke and Leia. I think that there's like something. I think there's something to that, you know, and I think that you may even make people who don't care for the sequels as much appreciate them a little more if you had a connective tissue land like that, where all of it is kind of interacting and playing with each other in a meaningful way that is like, you know what, even if it's not like my Star Wars, I can at least recognize that this is a piece of Star Wars history at this point, and my kids love it, or my niece and nephew love it, or my friends' kids love it. And that's cool because it can also point them to the stuff that I loved growing up. There's some real value there. But I'm going to throw it off to you guys. What do you think about Star Wars? What do you think about Galaxy's Edge? Are you excited for the Acolyte? Are you not? Let me know in the comments. Let's chat about it. I love talking to y'all. It's a lot of fun for me. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'm John. This is Sydney Park Rangers. Like, subscribe, all the things. Share it if you like, you know, if you really love me. Share the video. Share the video with your friends. All right, kiss, kiss. Goodbye.